Do you know many folks who have worked for their present company for more than 10 years? In fact, 29% of people, according to data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Which is crucial to keep in mind for later, seems alarmingly high until you realize that the great majority of this category consists of people who are close to retiring. The median age of U.S. workers was little over 4 years. In reality, several studies have found that full-time employees who remain with their company are paid 50% less on average for more than 2 years. This is a very wide difference, especially when you take into account that senior executives and the C-suite, who often have longer tenure, will greatly exaggerate the average of the loyal working group. For average people like you or me, this 50% estimate is probably too low. Why then don't businesses stop doing this? If it needs to be done repeatedly every 2 years, surely having to pay tens of thousands of dollars to advertise a position, interview candidates, onboard new workers, train them, and wait for them to come up to speed with their new duty is not sustainable. Although you would believe so, there are a few reasons why employers nowadays don't value employee loyalty. A wealth of abilities, task standardization. Globalization, corporate rungs are broken. Additionally, there is a constant need for new jobs. It's time to understand how money functions and explore the terrible thoughts of someone who, working in human resources, can help you make the most of the profession you'll likely have for the rest of your life and learn what companies do truly value. The first cause, the shifting need for various positions, is the most obvious and is destroying the attraction of business loyalty. These days, there are probably a lot more organizations seeking for dev operations engineers than there are switchboard operators, according to your local advertisements. As technology advances, it simultaneously creates new occupations while completely eliminating others. Because of how quickly things are changing in the contemporary world, many people will conclude their careers in occupations that did not exist when they initially began. But try to keep this in mind while we examine the other factors that are causing businesses to place less value on employee loyalty. The quantity of expertise that employers have access to comes next. The level of education is at an all-time high. For better or worse, becoming a college graduate is no longer unusual. Companies benefit from hiring these new employees for a number of reasons. For one, they are less expensive than their more experienced counterparts, but they also tend to be younger and more eager to work extra to ensure that specific tasks are completed. Companies like the top 4 accountancy firms are an extreme example. They provide highly regarded graduate programs that pay poorly and require significant commitment. They provide these with the idea that nearly no graduates will remain with the firm after committing their 2 years for that CV boost and will instead go for higher-paid jobs with a better work-life balance. According to a recent internal analysis, Deloitte had a personnel turnover rate of about 13% yearly, potentially costing the company $427 million in annual hiring and training costs and other indirect costs like project delays because of worker turnover. Deloitte benefits from a cheap labor pool to bill out for a few years, and those overworked juniors get to highlight their graduate degree experience on their resumes in the hopes of landing a better position with a traditional business. The traditional businesses that employ these former graduate program employees adore this arrangement for 3 reasons. The fact that they made it through 2 years at a Big 4 accounting firm is a positive sign that they can manage a significant job. They additionally possess some truly helpful knowledge. If a KPMG alumnus was performing consultancy work in the pharmaceutical industry and then moved on to work for Johnson & Johnson, they would be prepared with the fundamentals of the company's operations from day one because they had been actively involved with their projects in the past. Perhaps even more crucially, they will be aware of how their rivals do business. Now, I'm not referring to anything really risky in this regard, just simple statements like, "Oh, GSK simplified their expenditure clearance process by utilizing this software." These kinds of little, simple ideas can end up saving huge businesses millions. The fact is that corporations are aware that the greatest way to stay at the top of their field is to make sure they have a good supply of talent pouring in from their rivals. However, I just cite accounting firms as one especially egregious example. When you take the role of globalization into account, this becomes much more significant. Because of the growth of offshore service centers and the enormous increase in skilled migration, businesses may pick from a broad and deep pool of talent in practically every sector. Companies frequently offer even entry-level jobs internationally, especially since that everyone works remotely. The third reason why companies value these outside hiring, particularly for higher-level roles, is that they help avoid disastrous chain reactions in personnel. Imagine a corporation that made a concerted effort to promote from within and only ever filled senior positions by doing so. Although that may seem wonderful, there are some potential issues. Let's imagine a senior manager in the company decides to retire sometime. Anyhow, a floor manager from one of the 4 departments the senior manager oversaw is picked to replace them, followed by a project team manager and a senior associate to replace the manager of the team. In principle, this is the fairy tale example of ascending the corporate ladder, therefore many individuals in the company would be feeling fairly good about themselves. However, you might already be able to see the issues. Not only has this company lost a senior manager, but at the same time, for crucial positions are being filled by brand new employees. No matter how much experience they have, there will always be a learning curve associated with a new senior post. As a result, the firm may find itself in a situation where initiatives are delayed for months due to a corporate vertical that is entirely inactive. Contrast this with a different scenario where the senior management is simply replaced by an outside recruit. Not only would the firm avoid all of this silliness, but it could also be able to entice a bright employee away from a rival. Although this just means that the company is winning twice. You might say that this is nothing new. But the irony is that as firms have pushed towards flatter organizational structures with less clearly defined positions, it has grown more challenging to identify exactly who performs what. The famous phrase "you're irreplaceable" has 2 interpretations. Fortunately for businesses, the process of finding external hires has gotten more simpler due to the standardization of responsibilities in the workplace. Let me ask any office workers who are watching, which program do you use most frequently for your job? Probably by email, then? If not, it will probably be a product from the Microsoft suite, and anyone who doesn't fall into this group is presumably some kind of coder. Our ability to be productive as individuals has significantly increased with the use of computers in the workplace. Just 2 decades ago, a team of bookkeepers may have needed weeks to build a spreadsheet. Now, one intern can do it in an afternoon using Excel. In addition to maximizing man-hours, it has greatly increased the uniformity of most positions. Chances are there is an industry-standard software package that is utilized by the majority of businesses, regardless of whether you work in sales, customer service, administration, accounting, or anything else that includes utilizing a computer. The process of getting someone up to speed with a corporate system, which once may take weeks, can now be as simple as asking, "Okay, so have you used Salesforce before?" Take a look at the list of your clients and start calling. The position of bank manager is the most severe example of this. Becoming a bank manager was once considered to be very important, nearly on par with being a doctor or lawyer. This was due to the fact that bank management had to choose who to lend money to and who not to. In the era of credit scores, this may seem simple, but back then, it required a very thorough grasp of how businesses operate, as well as the local, state, and federal economies, as well as laws and regulations, as well as the bank's own financial situation. Additionally, in order to win their business, local business owners and the community at large were urged to cultivate close ties with bank managers. Today's bank manager is merely a glorified customer service position. They don't decide who receives a loan and who doesn't. The choice is made by an offshore credit department, which merely enters data into a computer program to determine whether to accept or reject. In those days, replacing a bank manager was a big matter since their position depended so much on relationships and day-to-day expertise that it was nearly necessary to replace them with someone else from the branch. Today, replacing a bank manager is as simple as advertising a job opening and waiting for a long queue of eager new applicants to arrive. Just know that it doesn't have to be gloomy if all of this seems grim. The idea of having a pleasant, secure work for a 40-year career may be dead, but the contemporary reality is, if anything, refreshingly honest. Until a better option arises, businesses exist to squeeze every last penny out of you, and you exist to squeeze every last penny out of a business. Change jobs. The statistics are accurate, it will benefit you. The only way to climb the corporate ladder, as we have seen, is by leaping over them. Yes, employers will try to take advantage of you, however, they are businesses, not charities, so treat them badly. Maintain a snazzy LinkedIn profile, accept any certifications or trainings that your employer will pay for, and stop deluding yourself into thinking that you will be rewarded for your loyalty. You won't. Okay, there are obviously two additional significant elements at work here. First of all, this video's numbers and trends have all been for full-time employees. If the army of gig economy contractors and casual employees were included, the overall situation would be even worse. At the end, based on the stats, if you were at a company for 2 years with no promotion or salary increase, switch jobs.